Hello everyone, this is the story of, What If Naruto Surrendered All to Hinata's Gentle Darkness? Prologue. A couple of months have passed after serious incidents had befallen Konoha. Peace is in the land once again. Team 7 took their second Chunin exams where they proved that they are worthy of the title. Team 7 was no more, it's just a memory for THM as they walk in their own paths as Chunins. After accomplishing a couple of S-rank missions, together once again, the three earned quite a name. People would call them great nins, but more would prefer calling them legends. Tsunade seized this time to promote them because they have proven themselves too much already. She formally promoted them as an elite ninja, as a Junin. They were just 17 when they became elite ninjas. At the age of 18 they were already leading their own band of genins. Naruto grew quite tall and handsome. He was still a loudmouth, but he proves himself rightio. As of being called as one of the legendary nins. His students look up to him and learned a lot. Sasuke on the other hand, grew tall and handsome too. He became more kind. He was able to express himself now. But he had accepted no students yet, much like Kakashi. What surprised everyone is that he was dating Sakura. Well, the pink-haired Kunoichi grew much more beautiful. She improved a lot when she stopped letting her world revolve around Sasuke when she became 14. Still surprised and quite happy, she is dating Sasuke for over a year now. Naruto recalled this as while he was sitting in his desk. A pretty boring desk job for a Hokage, Naruto thought, and then he sighed. It has been a week since Tsunade proclaimed him as the Hokage. Everyone was happy and accepted him as the new Hokage. Even I would drool and sleep like Tsunade Obaken if every day would be like this. He thought. The room was very silent, only the rustling of the wind as it hit the window and the ticking of the clock can be heard. Naruto and the others are at the age of 20 by now. He then looked at the clock with drowsy eyes and saw it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Naruto developed a habit of daydreaming late in the afternoon since his boring desk job started. He then sat up and approached the window. He looked at it and saw his reflection. He still wore his orange outfit but with the Konoha vest and the Hokage robe. He then decided to go for a walk. After passing the long hallways of the building, he reached the front desk. Hokage-sama, are you finished with your paperwork? The man at the front desk that is older than Naruto asked him. A bead of sweat ran down through Naruto's face as passing his whisker-like lines in his cheek. He grinned at her and the woman sighed. That he left his paperwork unfinished again. I'm just going out for a walk, Naruto said. I guess I'll let someone finish your paperwork. The woman sighed again. I appreciate it. He smiled at the woman and left the building. Naruto then made his way through the streets slowly. Some people still looked at him coldly, but some smiled at him and greeted him. He'd smile and greet the people back too. After minutes of walking slowly in the street, he reached his destination, the Hokage Monument. There were 6 faces now in the mountain and one of it is his. His face was the only smiling face in it. The other 5 had very serious look in their faces. He stood there for a while, breathing the fresh air and staring at the 6 faces. He laughed as he recalled his prank when he was still an academy student while he looked at the first 4 faces in the mountain. He was the dead last, and now he's the dead first. He laughed again as he saw Iruka-sensei's angry face. He then thought about Iruka-sensei, the first man who became close to him. He laughed again because he recalled that Iruka-sensei is now a married man. After recalling and laughing back at his pranks, he left the Hokage Monument before sunset and made his way through the streets again and into the forest inside the gates. After all his accomplishments, he still felt incomplete. There is still a hole in his soul. It then hit him. He had no family. No real family, that is. He only has friends he can trust. Sasuke has Sakura, Shikamaru has Ino, and the others as well were starting a family of their own. He sighed as he thought that no one would want to spend the remaining years of their life with him. Who would want to marry and love a man who has a monster inside him? He asked himself. He then arrived at the training area and the genins that were training there greeted him. At the distance, he saw someone he knew. Pearly eyes. It was already sunset. Hinata has been sitting there for a while now. She always spent her free time here. The training area. This place is very special to her. I like people, like you. It still echoed in her mind after all this years. That word made this place special, those words from him made this palace very special for her. She still blushed as that scene played back again and again in her mind. She then recalled what happened to her for the past years. She ran away from her father when she became 15. She ran away because she didn't want the fate that her father made for her. She wants it to be made by her on herself. She improved a lot after gaining independence from her father and the clan. Neji didn't bother and actually supported her because he wanted to run away from his fate as a bird in the cage too, a fate that was made by someone rather than him. But that's all over now. Naruto just cleared the Hyuga clan problem days ago. He even made up a new technique to remove that cursed seal in Neji's forehead. Neji became betrothed to her sister Hanabi. It didn't really bother anyone because everyone knew it is tradition. Her father then gave the title as Hyuga head to Neji. Hinata. A very familiar voice broke off her thoughts. She looked at the one who said that and saw Naruto smiling at her. And Naruto-kun. This time she didn't run behind the tree. She has more confidence now, but not much around her Naruto. Naruto then sat beside Hinata. The genins were staring at them. Their Junin teacher was staring at them too. The two just sat there in silence thinking of what to talk about. Naruto then stared at her. He felt something he hadn't felt before. Hinata noticed his sticky stare and looked at him with confusion. She then noticed that Naruto's face is slowly getting closer at her face. Ah, Naruto-sama is gonna beep her. The genin said. That can't be. I'm Naruto-sama's girlfriend. The girl said. Shut up, Saya. We know you're just making these things up, the other genin boy. Hinata blushed more as Naruto's face neared her face. What are you doing, Naruto-kun? Hinata barely said it because her heart is beating very fast. Naruto then stared at her. He wanted to beep her but he can't do it in public, he thought. Instead he just whispered something at Hinata, something that made her blush too much. He then stood up with a shade of pink in his face. Maybe we'll see each other again sometime in the future, and I'll make sure it's not here. Naruto then walked away, still blushing. Moments after, Hinata still stared at the path that Naruto took as he left. She couldn't believe what he had just whispered at her. The three genins stared at her wondering what the Hokage whispered. Their sensei then called their attention and they went back to training. I can't believe that I've never noticed before. But you have beautiful eyes, Hinata-chan. Don't you have someone yet? Naruto sighed. He still didn't know what that feeling he just felt a while ago. But he is sure of one thing, he liked that feeling. He then made his way through the streets and then arriving at his favorite restaurant, Ichiraku Ramen. He sat down there, thinking about what took place a while ago. One super-size ramen please. He said at the cook. Naruto. A female beside him said. He then turned his head and saw Sakura and Sasuke eating too. Yo, why are you eating here, Sasuke? Aren't you gonna take her to a more expensive restaurant? Naruto asked her. Hey, I took her here because it looks like we've already ate at every restaurant here in the village and because she wanted to eat here. Sasuke replied. I want to eat here because I missed this place, and what a coincidence. Team 7 is eating together here again. Sakura added. Naruto then recalled that he gave up on Sakura-chan 6 years ago. After all, it was just a crush. Naruto thought and he smiled at the two. The cook then served him his order. He ate it silently. Sakura and Sasuke didn't even hear a sound as he slurped the noodles. They wondered why Naruto is awfully quiet. Sakura then thought of something to liven up the atmosphere a little bit. Nay, Naruto, she said with a big grin on her face. Don't you have someone special yet? Some of Naruto's food got caught in his throat and then he coughed. After coughing a lot he then blushed. Ha ha ha, oi Naruto, you're blushing. Sakura chuckled but inner Sakura laughed a lot. Sasuke just chuckled but deep inside he laughed a lot too. Oi, Sakura, are you toying with me? Naruto said still blushing. No. Chuckling, I'm serious. Sakura said. Why would you be interested in my love life, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked. Naruto, I'm the one asking here, so you better answer now. Sakura said. Is that a threat? Naruto asked. He then finished his meal and got up from his seat. He then paid up for his ramen. His appetite vanished when Sakura brought up the question. He didn't want to talk about it because he didn't know what to say about it. Leaving already? Come on Naruto. Answer my question, Sakura said. Naruto then stared at her. Maybe, he whispered at her before he walked away. Hinata then entered her apartment. She had been living there for about 5 years. Her apartment looked quite simple, neither too girlish nor too boyish, it was just plain simple. She sat there in her couch. You have beautiful eyes, Hinata-chan. It was now the one echoing in her mind. She is still shocked by the fact that Naruto found her empty pearly eyes beautiful. It was the first time she got praised for her eyes, and Naruto was the one said that. Her heart almost exploded in happiness. She then felt sleepy. She rushed and entered her bedroom and she lied there and slept peacefully. In her dream, Hinata was packing up late at night. She planned on running away from the clan tonight. Someone then knocked at her door. Who might that be? She asked herself. She stashed her bag and hid it in her cabinet. She then opened the door and saw Neji. Brother Neji, she said. Neji smiled at her. Neji has been nicer to her ever since he read the scroll containing the truth of his father's death. Hinata-sama, I've got something to ask you. Can I come in? Hinata nodded and then Neji entered her room. What is it, Brother Neji? She asked as Neji sat down in the floor. Neji then suddenly looked serious. Hinata sat down on the old-styled floor. I know what you are planning. Neji said. But how did you? Hinata exclaimed. Hey, it's just a hunch, you've been acting very weird lately. Neji said. But are you sure about it? Hinata nodded. But where will you go? I'll rent an apartment, she answered. Do you have enough money to move out yet? Neji asked. That's my problem. Hinata looked down. Here. Nay. Ji then pulled her hand and placed some money in it. He smiled at Hinata. Brother and Neji, Hinata said. Neji then stood up and approached the door. He opened it. Take it, it's a gift. Neji stepped outside and closed the door again. All Hinata could hear was his fading footsteps. Hinata's sleep was then cut by the phone beside her bed. She picked it up. Hello, Hinata said. Hinata-chan, it's me Naruto. The caller said. Sorry if I woke you up, but I was wondering if we can eat lunch together tomorrow. Is it all right? Hinata was shocked. Naruto is asking her out. Hinata-chan, are you still there? Naruto asked. Gomen. Hinata said. No, it's all right. Then would you? Naruto asked. Sure. Hinata answered. Where will we meet? Hinata asked. Let me see. Naruto said. How about we meet at Ichiraku Ramen? Hinata asked. All right. See you tomorrow then. Bye. Naruto said. Bye. Hinata then ended the phone call. First date. As the Hokage, Naruto has to wake up very early in the morning and start his desk job early too. That would keep him occupied until lunch break. He then looked at his clock and saw it is only 8 in the morning. 8 in the morning. He had to endure 4 hours of his boring desk job. Hour after hour, he looked at the clock waiting for lunch break. After 3 hours of his boring desk job, he looked at it again and saw. It was already 11 o'clock in the morning. Okay. An hour to go. He smiled as he signed his paperwork. Time seems too slow when you're really waiting for something. As he waited for the lunch break, he continuously scribbled Hinata's name in a clean sheet of paper. Finally, he saw it was already 11:30 a.m. He smiled more. Then somebody knocked at his door. Hokage-sama, I have urgent news for you. The man at the other side of the door shouted. Come in, Naruto said. The man then opened the door. It was Kakashi, holding a single piece of paper. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said. Kakashi didn't respond about Naruto still calling him sensei, even though he was already the Hokage. Instead Kakashi stared at him with serious eyes. What's the matter? Naruto asked. Kakashi then placed the paper in front of Naruto. Seeing his scribbles of Hinata's name, he formed a happy curve in his eyes while Naruto read the paper he gave to him. When did this arrive? Naruto asked. Just a while ago, Hokage-sama. Kakashi replied, breaking off the happy curve in his eyes. An assassin outside Wind Country. Naruto then surveyed a certain part of the document. Has abducted a couple of leaf nins, he said. Who were abducted? Naruto asked. 3 Chunins. Konohamaru, Moegi, Udon were the ones abducted. Naruto's eyes twitched. Konohamaru is a very important friend of his, as well as Moegi and Udon. And the assassin has demanded that the Hokage should be the one who'll retrieve them personally. Naruto said. Kakashi. Who knows the information about the three's mission? Naruto asked. A relative of the client, Hokage-sama. Kakashi replied. I want you to get him and Tsunade. Naruto said with a worried tone. Kakashi then left his office. Naruto sighed, as he looked at the wall clock in his office. 5 minutes until lunch break, and it looks like this problem is gonna take long. Hinata arrived at the ramen house just in time for lunch. She observed her surroundings and saw no trace of Naruto at all. She then stood just outside of the ramen house. She stared at her wristwatch and watched as it ticked. She looked up at the clouds and saw it is really dark. After 5 minutes, Kakashi arrived with Tsunade. Kakashi, where is the client's relative? Naruto asked as he gave Tsunade the document. He was nowhere to be found, Hokage-sama. Kakashi said. Damn, is Suna still planning to destroy Konoha? Naruto retorted and banged his fist in his desk. Naruto then waited for Tsunade to finish reading the document. After a while, Tsunade returned the document to Naruto. Well, it looks like somebody has to go, or we lose these 3 chunins. Tsunade said. I'll go, Naruto said as he stared at his wall clock. But Hokage-sama, Kakashi said. He didn't say whether it was the 5th or 6th that had to go there. Kakashi added. So it doesn't have to be you. The news about the Rokudime of the Fire Country must have reached all the countries by now. Quote. Tsunade said. So that assassin will be waiting for me. Naruto finished Tsunade's sentence. But what if something happens to you? Hokage-sama, Kak, Ashi said with a worried tone in his voice. Don't underestimate me, Kakashi. Naruto said as he impatiently tapped his desk and looked at the clock. It's already 12:15 NN, damn. Naruto thought. That assassin must be a skilled one. If we try to send a Hokage imposter, he might abduct him too. Very well, Kakashi said and then he left. 5 minutes have already passed since Hinata arrived in front of the ramen house. She sighed and then Ayame, the woman working at Ichiraku, noticed her standing outside. Hinata was getting pretty hungry. Hey, what are you doing there? Ayame asked. I'm waiting for someone, Hinata replied. Okay then, Ayame said. After 15 minutes of standing outside the ramen house, Hinata's legs became tired. Excuse me, Ayame tapped Hinata's shoulder. Yes, Hinata's stomach let out a small grumble. Hinata blushed. Looks like you're pretty hungry and pretty tired, so why don't you came and eat here? Hinata smiled and then nodded. She then entered the ramen house and sat in one of its seats. She then looked at her watch and she sighed. Where is Naruto-kun? She asked. What will be your order, miss? Ayame asked. 1 barbecue ramen, please. She sighed again. Looks like your date is pretty late. Ayame whispered at her. Hinata just nodded. Well, it looks like I'll be in charge here for a while. Tsunade sighed. She then looked at the paperwork piled in Naruto's desk. I'm gonna leave tomorrow, Naruto said with impatience in his voice. He looked at the clock again and saw it was already 12:18. Then I'm gonna arrange escorts for you, Kakashi said. Then, you're all dismissed. Naruto then sat up. You sure are in a hurry, Hokage-sama. You're that hungry already? Tsunade asked as she grinned at Naruto. No, I'm going to meet someone and I'm pretty late. He then walked away from his desk. Is it a date? Tsunade asked. My personal life is none of your business, Naruto said as he walked towards the door. Is it a date with Hinata by any chance? Tsunade asked while Naruto opened his door. Naruto glared at her. You're too nosy. He then ran out of the door. Tisk. Youth, Tsunade said after minutes of waiting and eating her ramen. There is still no sign of the hyperactive Rokudime. Then all of them heard the skies grumble. Looks like it's gonna rain soon, the cook said. You better get going if you don't want to get wet by the rain, miss, Ayame said. Well, looks like you're right, Hinata said. She then paid for her ramen and left the ramen house. After a minute, Naruto rushed into the ramen house. He observed it and saw one empty bowl of ramen. Did a blue-haired woman eat here by any chance? Naruto said. Yeah, Naruto-sama. She just left a minute ago. You might be able to catch up to her, the cook said, pointing at where Hinata went. I really appreciate this. He then left the ramen house and ran to the direction where the cook told him to. After a minute of running, he finally saw a glimpse of Hinata's back. Hinata-chan, wait, he shouted. Hinata then turned and saw Naruto running. She smiled. Naruto then stopped in front of her, panting. He stood straight and then smiled at Hinata. I'm sorry, he said while scratching his head. It's all right. She smiled again. How about dinner tonight? Naruto exclaimed. Hinata was pretty shocked. Naruto was this eager to ask her out. She thought. She then nodded. Naruto then walked her home to at least know her new home and pick her up there later. I'll pick you up here at 7 inches. He then beeped Hinata on the cheek. The real first date. And first beep. In a dark cave somewhere outside Suna, 3 chunins lie asleep in the ground. Their wrists wrapped around by a steel chain. A tall dark-haired man sits by their side, guarding them and preventing any escape. One of the chunins opens his drowsy eyes and observes where they are. He turns his head and sees a man whose eyes are fixed upon a small hole in the ceiling that provides them little light inside the cave. The man then looks at him. The chunin's eyes then adapt to the darkness of the cave and he was able to see the man's features. The man has dark eyebrows and brown eyes. His nose and mouth was covered with a black face mask. He was wearing a black suit and black sandals. A black band of cloth H is wrapped around his forehead and a sword tied in his back. Who are you? The tired chunin asks the stranger sitting beside him. The stranger glared at him. You do not need to know my name. The stranger replied with a cold tone in his voice. The man stands up and kneels down in front of the chunin. He grabs a very little bottle from his pouch and places it in front of the chunin. He removes the bottle's cap. The bottle then released a scent of some kind. The chunin's eyes then get heavy again and he starts to fall asleep again. That'll keep you asleep for a while. He stands up and covers the bottle and places it back inside his pouch. Tisk, what a lousy mission. He then walks back and sits down to his old sitting spot. From time to time, he would sigh and mutter how lousy this mission is. Sooner or later, they're gonna escape, he thought. He closes his eyes and attempts to sleep for a while. He then senses another person walking. He alerts himself and grabs a kunai from his kunai holster. Then I'll see you tonight, Naruto said after he beeped Hinata on the cheek. He then left the apartment building. Hinata closed her door and thought what kind of date she would have with Naruto tonight, a usual kind of date or a formal one. Naruto walked in the street and he stopped walking suddenly. Oh, I forgot to tell Hinata something, he said and he made his way through the streets towards Hinata's apartment. He knocked in her door. Hina, he said as the door opened, but Hinata wasn't the one that opened it. Oh, Sakura-chan. Naruto, what are you doing here? Sakura asked. I'm wanted to talk to Hinata. Is this her apartment? I might have made a mistake, he then pouted. This is her apartment, Sakura replied. Then what are you doing here? Naruto asked. I just moved here a while ago since Hinata is so lonely here, she said. Naruto peeked inside their apartment and saw a couple of boxes piled inside. Sakura, who are you talking to? Hinata shouted from inside the apartment. Hinata-chan, Naruto exclaimed. Hinata-chan, Sakura asked with a big grin in her face. Hinata then approached the door. Naruto-kun, what are you doing here? Hinata asked. I forgot to tell you something, Naruto said. About what? Sakura asked. Sakura-chan, it's none of your business. Naruto pouted again. Hinata was a little irritated about Naruto still calling her roommate Sakura-chan. Can I talk to you in private, Hinata-chan? Asked Hinata. Hinata nodded and stepped outside of her apartment. Akira closed the door to provide them the privacy they wanted. What is it then, Naruto-kun? Hinata looked down on the ground. Naruto cupped his right hand in Hinata's chin and raised her head. She blushed. Look into my eyes, Naruto whispered. Hinata blushed more. Her heart was beating in a fast pace, making her breath heavily. Relax. Naruto then removed his hand from Hinata's cheek. I just wanted to tell you that I want to have a formal date with you, Naruto said and beeped her on the cheek again. See you tonight at 7. He then left again. I'll save that for later, Naruto thought as he walked away. Naruto then arrived at his office and he started doing his paperwork. He finished it by 5 p.m. and left the office. He then stopped by the Yamanaka flower shop. He saw Shikamaru and Ino there watching the shop together. Naruto, what a surprise, Shikamaru said. Naruto then approached the cashier. Ino, would you kindly arrange flowers for me, make it very beautiful. Naruto said. Don't tell me you're going after Sakura again, Ino said as she handed pictures of different flower arrangement to choose from to Naruto. No. My mind is over her now, Naruto said as he picked the picture. Here, he then said. That's an expensive one, Naruto. It must be for someone very special. Who might it be? She then started to fill out an order form. I'm sure Sakura can tell you. Naruto then gave her the payment. I'll pick it up a couple of minutes before 7, he added. Don't worry, Ino said. Naruto then left the shop. He went straight home to his new apartment, which is a lot better than his old one. It is much bigger and more comfortable. He looked at the clock and saw it was just a couple of minutes before 6 o'clock. He rested for a while and he took a bath. After taking a bath, he opened his closet and found a very clean white polo shirt and a black coat and black slacks. He searched for leather shoes and found good ones. He recalled that he bought all these clothes just last month. Sakura bought it for him just for her 20th birthday. Naruto thanked Sakura. Because of her he will look very handsome tonight, just for her. Naruto didn't actually wear it on Sakura's 20th birthday because he didn't attend. He was very busy on that day. After putting on his clothes, he looked at the mirror to see how he looked. He wasn't wearing his forehead protector. Well, he looked quite handsome. He diverted his attention to the clock and saw it was already 6:45. He put on his coat and left his apartment. As he walked on the street, young women's eyes were glued to him. He felt quite insecure about it. He then arrived at the flower shop and Ino and Shikamaru looked at him with very big eyes. And Naruto, is that you? Ino asked. Yeah. He then pouted. Nay, Shikamaru, do I look silly in this? He asked the astounded Shikamaru. Do you look silly? Shikamaru then laughed. I guess I do. Naruto pouted again. No, you don't look silly, Naruto. Shikamaru grinned at him. Actually, I envy you a little bit. Ino then presented Naruto the flowers he ordered. Here you go, Naruto-sama. Ino then gave him the bouquet. Thank you, Ino. He then left with the bouquet of flowers. After going to the flower shop, Naruto made a reservation in the new restaurant and luckily was able to reserve a good seat. Hinata spent her time helping Sakura with her things. After some hours, she looked at the clock and saw it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She rested in the couch with Sakura. Nay, Hinata, Sakura said. Quote, are you going out with Naruto tonight? She asked her new roommate. Why yeah. Hinata then frowned. Why are you sad? I thought you like him. Sakura said with a worried tone. No, it's not that, Hinata replied. Then, what is it? Sakura asked. I really don't have any good clothes to wear, and Naruto might be disappointed. She frowned again. So, are you going to a formal date with him? Hinata nodded. Then, Sakura then stood up and led Hinata to her room. She opened her closet and pulled out a beautiful dress. I'll let you borrow this, it's just new. Sakura gave it to Hinata. But Sakura, Hinata said. Sakura smiled at her. You might as well prepare for tonight. She looked at her wristwatch. See, it's already past 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Hinata nodded and went straight to the bathroom after putting the dress in her room. The tall figure walked in the cave. The assassin tightened his grip on his kunai and prepared for his attack at the stranger. The stranger continued to walk in the cave. The assassin readied himself but, relax, a cold voice said. It was from the stranger. He assassin returned his kunai and relaxed. What are you doing here, old man? The assassin said. I just wanted to visit you, the stranger replied. Hey, stop joking around, old man. You're not that kind of person. The assassin said. You're right. Then what are you doing here? I'm here to tell you something. What? I'm gonna use her for this mission, the stranger replied. What? The assassin exclaimed. Then the light disappeared in the cave. Night has already fallen. The cave was now very silent. I know that this mission is very silly. To think of it, if they wake up, they'll escape as soon as possible. I am going to take them and then. After cleaning herself, Hinata went straight to her room and put on Sakura's dress. She looked at herself in the mirror. She blushed as she stared at her reflection. She asked herself what Naruto would think about her when he sees her tonight. Hinata then looked at her clock and it was already 15 minutes before 7. She then walked out of her room carrying her small shoulder bag with her. She then sat in the couch in her apartment's living room. She watched the wall clock there as it ticked. 5 minutes. Before 7 she then saw Sakura wearing a dress too. Sakura approached her. Hinata, you look very beautiful in that dress. Sakura exclaimed and then sat with Hinata in the couch. Why you think so? Hinata asked Sakura while she blushed. I don't lie about those things. Sakura then smiled at Hinata. Sakura, why are you wearing a dress? Hinata asked. Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to be a fun spoiler in your date. I have a date with Sasuke too. She smiled again and gave Hinata a reassuring wink. Hinata then smiled at her. They both sat there at the couch, waiting for their dates. Hinata was still watching her clock. Only a few seconds to go and it's 7. She counted down. 5, 4, 3, 2, then somebody knocked at their door. Hinata froze up. She didn't know what to do after opening the door. I'll get the door. Sakura then sat up and opened the door. Sakura saw Naruto standing in front of her carrying a very beautiful bouquet of flowers. Naruto blushed when Sakura grinned at him. Is that for me? Sakura evilly grinned at Naruto. Naruto glared at her and then sighed. No. It's not for you. Is Hina? Yeah, she's here. Waiting for you. She grinned at Naruto again. Come in Naruto-sama. Naruto then came in and entered their living room. He then saw Hinata there sitting at the couch, looking down on the ground and nervously waited there for her date. Naruto then approached her. He tapped her at her shoulder and then he smiled. Sakura watched silently but decided to give them privacy so she left. Hinata then stood up. And Naruto-kun. She then smiled at Naruto. Naruto smiled back. You. He then moved his eyes up and down once. You look very beautiful. He then smiled again. Really? I'm not lying. You really look beautiful in that white dress. Naruto then gave her the flowers. Thank you. Naruto-kun, you didn't have to bother giving me an expensive bouquet of flowers. Hinata then observed the flowers. I hope you like it. Naruto said. Yes, it's very beautiful. Hinata said. You're more beautiful. Naruto said at her. Hinata blushed. Just wait here, and Naruto-kun. I'm just going to place it inside my room. Hinata then left the room and after a while she came back. Naruto then offered her his right arm. Hinata then wrapped her left arm around it. Then, let's go. They then left the apartment. On their way out the building, they saw Sasuke, Naruto and Hinata. Sasuke thought, oh, hi Sasuke. Naruto then grinned at him. Hinata just smiled. While they walked in the street, people smiled at them. Other women looked at Hinata with jealousy. Hinata didn't care because this is her happiest moment. She smiled because she thought that Naruto really did care for her because he would do all these things for her. They then stopped by a newly opened Japanese restaurant. This is the newly opened restaurant, she muttered. And a very expensive one, she then thought. Naruto and Hinata then walked in. The usher then asked Naruto if they have a reservation. Naruto nodded and said his name. The usher smiled because he knew Naruto as the Hokage. Naruto left his coat. He smiled at Hinata too. The usher whispered something at Naruto which made him smile and blush. The usher then led them to their table. Naruto ordered their special ramen and Hinata ordered beef teriyaki. Hinata then smiled at Naruto. You ordered ramen? She asked. Naruto grinned at her. I want to try if their ramen is good, he whispered at Hinata. Hinata smiled again. After that they became very silent. They were both thinking about what to talk about. Naruto then broke the silence. Hinata-chan, how is Nae? He then saw Hinata's sad look on her face. Oh, forget about that. Why are you sad? Naruto asked. Sakura-chan. It still echoed in her head, and still irritates her. Hinata-chan. She then heard. Oh, is something bothering you? Do I look silly? Naruto then pouted. No, Naruto-kun, you don't look silly in that dress. In fact, you look very handsome, she then blushed. But, Naruto-kun, can I ask you something? Sure, Naruto exclaimed. You won't get mad, Hinata asked as she scribbled little circles in the table with her finger. I won't get mad, Naruto said. Hinata paused for a while. Do you still like Sakura? Hinata asked. Naruto smiled at her and placed his hand over Hinata's hand. No, I don't like her anymore. Naruto smiled again. It was just a crush, and... And, Hinata thought. Hinata then smiled again. ND put some more pressure over Hinata's hand. I have someone else in mind now, and I also think that I like her very much. Naruto smiled again. Sasuke then knocked at Sakura's new apartment door. Sakura opened it with her purse already ready. Sakura-chan, I just saw Naruto and Hinata. Where are they going? Sasuke asked his date. Sakura then stepped out of the door and closed it. She then grinned at Sasuke. They're going on a date, Sasuke-kun, she grinned at Sasuke again. Why do I get the feeling that we're going to follow them? Sasuke said and then sighed. Because we are going to follow them. Sakura then grabbed his arm and pulled him. They then went out of the building and then walked in a fast pace to catch up with Naruto. When they caught up with them, they maintained a safe distance away. Then they saw the two stop by a newly opened restaurant. Sakura then nudged Sasuke's side. Did you make a reservation there, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked him. Yeah, that's the restaurant I was talking about. Sasuke replied. Sakura then beeped Sasuke in the cheek. Then let's go. Sakura then pulled him again. They entered the restaurant a few minutes after Naruto and Hinata entered the restaurant. The usher then led them to their table. Sakura grinned evilly because they have a very good scenery, Naruto and Hinata. After they ordered, Sakura watched all the movements of the two. Sasuke just sat there observing his date. Sakura could see Naruto and Hinata's smiles and blushes. She didn't even notice that their food is ready. Sasuke sighed and then tapped his date on her shoulder. Sakura-chan. He sighed again. Sakura then looked at him. Are you forgetting about our date? Sasuke asked. Sakura smiled. Sorry, Sasuke-kun. When she looked at where Hinata and Naruto's table, she saw that they already left. Naruto then walked Hinata home. When they arrived at the door, Naruto smiled at her and gave her a quick beep in the cheek and then walked away. Hinata opened her door and started to walk in, and then she suddenly remembered something. She grabbed Naruto's coat and pulled it softly to catch his attention. Naruto looked at her. Naruto then approached her closer. What's the problem, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked. I forgot to ask you one thing. Hinata then let go of his coat. Nani? Naruto asked. What did the usher tell you? Hinata asked. Naruto approached her closer again and beeped her passionately. Hinata almost lost her balance but found out that Naruto stopped her from falling because his arms were wrapped in her hips. They beeped there for a minute, begging for time to stop. Naruto then broke the beep off. He smiled at her. He told me that I'm very lucky. Naruto then walked in the door and closed it. He grabbed Hinata's hand and pulled her. Naruto led her to the couch. Naruto beeped her again. They both fell in the couch. Naruto broke off the beep and stared at Hinata. Hinata blushed. And Naruto-kun. She blushed again as she noticed where this is gonna go. Naruto smiled at her. Hinata-chan. I love you. Naruto beeped her again, this time more passionately. She then wrapped her arms around Naruto's neck. She ran her fingers through his blonde hair as Naruto beeped her. When Naruto broke off the beep, he would whisper the words, I love you, at Hinata's ear many times before he beeped her again. Hinata didn't complain. She loved Naruto. She had nothing to worry about. Bye, Sasuke-kun. Sakura beeped Sasuke before she entered their door. Sasuke waved goodbye at her and then left. Sakura then wondered if Hinata is home now. When she opened the door, she saw Hinata's key for their apartment lying in the ground. She picked it up. She's home now. I better give it to her. She then went straight to the living room. The living room of their apartment is a closed room. The apartment is very big for only a person. Since she found out that Hinata was living here all alone, she decided to move in and help Hinata with her love life as a friend. She then opened the door and closed her eyes. Hina. She was cut off when she saw the two beeping in the couch. You forgot your key. She then dropped it on the ground and quickly left the living room. Naruto and Hinata stopped beeping and sat a few inches away from one another. They were blushing. Hinata. I'm very sorry that I interrupted the both of you, Sakura said at the other side of the door. No. It's all right, Sakura. Hinata nervously replied. I'm really sorry. Sakura then stopped leaning on the door and went away. Hinata-chan. Naruto nervously said. Naruto-kun, she said with a trembling voice. The both of them were too embarrassed to speak. They didn't speak any word at all. Naruto then stood up. I better go. He then closed his half-unbuttoned polo shirt. Hinata quickly grabbed his wrist. Don't go, Hinata said. Going away. Naruto turned to her, looking down into her eyes that seemed to sparkle for him. What? He asked in a nervous voice as the interrupt still had its effect. Don't go Naruto-kun. Hinata muttered as she pulled him back down beside her. She then wrapped her arm around him and set the side of her face against his chest. Stay here with me. Hinata's face was a new color of red to what she was saying. Naruto shared the same expression as he looked down to her and finally found what he had missed all his life, what he needed to fill the gap. He wrapped his arm around Hinata and beeped the top of her head. I will, Hinata-chan, just for you. Naruto then wrapped his other arm around her and held her gently and lovingly. Hinata couldn't be happier as she sat there on the couch with Naruto, feeling the love in his embrace for her. She could swear it was all a dream. If it was, she hoped she would never wake up from it. Sakura wasn't sure if Naruto had left after dismissing herself to let them say their goodbyes, if that's what it came down to. She inched her way into the next room. As she did, she just stopped and smiled, seeing the two sit there so peacefully holding one another. Damn it, why doesn't Sasuke hold me like that? She thought in the back of her mind, but turned away to leave the two in peace. Naruto opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the ceiling of a room. He then noticed the head resting in his chest. He turned his head and saw a blue-haired woman peacefully sleeping with her head resting in the right part of his chest and hugging his right arm. He then lifted his left arm and lightly brushed his fingers over Hinata's soft face. As he ran his fingers through her face, Hinata buried her head more in Naruto's chest and muttered, Naruto-kun, I love you. Naruto smiled after Hinata said those words. He felt very happy, especially this morning, as he woke up beside the one he really loves, a person he can consider as family. He looked at the clock in the table beside him and saw it was already 8 in the morning. He carefully removed Hinata's head in his chest. He felt relieved that he didn't disturb Hinata's sleep. He then stood up and he picked up his clothes near the bed and put it on. He then looked for some paper and ball pen. After silently searching for it in Hinata's room, he placed a note in the table beside the bed and smiled before he left the room. When he got back in his apartment, he quickly had a shower and put on his black t-shirt and his Konoha ninja vest paired with his normal orange pants. He grabbed his big traveling backpack from his closet and started to pack his things. He then locked up his apartment before he left. He arrived at his office carrying his bag. He dropped it gently near his desk. He rubbed his shoulders and then sat at his chair. He sighed because he didn't want to leave. He wanted to stay by Hinata's side every time he has a chance to. Hinata, mind and body, was already awake, but she wanted to cuddle in her bed with Naruto longer. She then noticed that the one she was cuddling is her own pillow. She opened her eyes and frowned at the sight of it. It was all a dream, she even thought, but she noticed a note in the table beside her bed. She sat up and reached for it. Gomen, Hinata-chan, I'm really sorry that I left without notice. I didn't want to disturb your sleep. I want to tell you something. Could you come by my office before 10 this morning? Hope you can. I'll wait for you, Naruto. She then smiled and put down the note again at the table. She felt very relieved that it wasn't a dream. She got up instantly and went straight to bathroom. She cleaned herself up and put on her usual wear since she became a genin. When she finished, she went to the dining room. She saw Sakura drinking water and reading the fashion section of the day's newspaper in front of the table with a couple of toasts of bread in a plate in front of her. She blushed as she remembered what Sakura saw last night between Naruto and her. Sakura noticed her and put down her newspaper in the table and grinned at her. So, how did it go? Sakura grinned at her more. Hinata couldn't reply because she was still embarrassed. Sakura chuckled. Don't worry. I'm not asking about the scene in the couch. Sit down and eat. Sakura smiled. Hinata sat down beside her and started to eat a toast of bread. It went very well. Hinata replied, blushing. She then looked at her wristwatch and saw it was already 9:30 a.m. She quickly finished her toast of bread and drank a glass of water. She then stood up. You know, Hinata, Sakura said before Hinata started walking away. What? Hinata asked. I really envy you, Sakura said. Why? Hinata looked at Sakura with confused eyes. She hoped that Sakura wouldn't answer, because I like him too. She waited intently for her roommate's answer. Sakura stared at her and smiled. I just wish that Sasuke is as romantic as your Naruto is. She started to read the newspaper again. Naruto waited for Hinata to come by and prayed that she would before he left. He scribbled Hinata's name again at an important document with a couple of hearts accompanying it. Tsunade then entered the room and saw Naruto dozing off, scribbling Hinata's name in an important document. She sighed because the Rokudaime didn't notice her. So much for a Hokage. She sighed again. Hey kid, stop scribbling Hinata's name in that document. Tsunade shouted at Naruto. Naruto flinched when Tsunade shouted at him. He then stopped scribbling her name in the paper. His jaws dropped to the ground. Oh no, he then shouted. Tisk! Young people, Tsunade muttered. Naruto quickly grabbed an eraser and started erasing all his scribbles. Thank God that I just used a pencil, he thought. After erasing his scribbles he turned his attention at his visitor. Glad you finally noticed me, Tsunade said. What are you doing here, Obeken? Naruto asked as he put aside his things and his paperwork. Tsunade's eyes twitched a little because of what Naruto called her. Naruto, how many times did I tell you that I'm not old? She shouted at him again and started to relax again. You're all set, she then said while she glared at Naruto. Really? What time is it? Naruto asked. It's already 9:35 in the morning. Tsunade said. Someone then knocked at the door. Hokage-sama, you have a visitor. A man on the other side of the door said. Who is it? Naruto asked. It's Hyuga Hinata, the man replied. Let her in, Naruto exclaimed. Hinata then entered the room. Naruto smiled when he saw her. Then, guess I'll leave the two of you alone. Naruto, your escorts are waiting for you at the main gate. Tsunade then left the room and closed the door. Naruto stood up and gestured for Hinata to come closer. Hinata approached him and then Naruto hugged her. I'm so glad you came by. Naruto then stopped hugging her. Why? Hinata asked. Naruto smiled at her. Because I have something to tell you. He then gestured her to sit down. Hinata sat down on the chair in front of Naruto's desk and Naruto sat down in front of her. Hen reached out for her hand and clasped it with both of his. He then gripped Hinata's hand tightly. Naruto looked at Hinata with sparkling eyes. Hinata didn't know what Naruto wanted to say. Actions speak louder than words. About last night, Hinata-chan. Naruto said with a slight tone of nervousness. What about last night? Hinata asked as she put her hand over Naruto's hand that was clasping her other hand. I know many things happened between us last night, and Naruto then inhaled a large amount of air. I think we took it somewhat fast. I mean, during our first night, Naruto said. Hinata removed her hand from Naruto's grip and started clasping Naruto's hand and she smiled at him. She leaned and beat Naruto at his forehead. I didn't regret anything that happened between us last night. Hinata smiled at Naruto. Naruto then kneeled in front of her and wrapped his arms around her hips. Hinata brushed her fingers through Naruto's face. Hinata tried to beat Naruto in the forehead but Naruto insisted for a beep on the lips. Someone then knocked at the door. Hokage-sama, it is time for you to go, the man that knocked earlier said on the other side of the door. Naruto let go of Hinata's hips and he stood up. All right, I'll be there. Just give me a moment. Naruto replied. He sighed in a kind of manner that made Hinata worry. Hinata then grabbed his robe. Naruto looked at her with worried eyes. She then stood up. Where are you going? Hinata said. I'm going to fetch some shunins. Naruto said. When will you come back? Hinata asked. I don't know. Maybe after a month. I still have to clear things up with Suna, you know. Naruto replied. Naruto-kun, take care of yourself. Hinata then hugged him and rested her head in Naruto's chest. I should be the one saying that. Naruto then cupped his hands in Hinata's chin and he beeped her. Take care of yourself. I don't want to lose you all of a sudden. Hinata stopped hugging Naruto and smiled at him. Naruto brushed his fingers through her blue hair. He then picked up his bag and then he walked out of his room followed by Hinata. Hinata walked close with him, while Naruto made his way through the streets. When they arrived at destination, Hinata saw there were a couple of ninjas intending to wish the Hokage good luck for their mission. Tsunade then smiled at the two of them. Naruto, why are you carrying such a big bag? Tsunade asked. Hey, it's my things, he replied. Naruto put down his bag. Tsunade then gestured at one of the Anbu to carry his bag into his carriage. Can't I just walk? Naruto asked. No. It will be a very long journey if you walk. You might end up seeing dead Chunins when you get there if you walk. Tsunade said. Okay. Naruto then started walking but he was stopped by Hinata. Hinata was holding on to his robe. Hinata-chan. Naruto said. Hinata then looked at him. Naruto-kun. Hinata said. Naruto then suddenly beeped her in the forehead and smiled at her. Don't worry, Naruto said, and then Hinata then stopped holding on to Naruto's robe. She watched Naruto as he entered his carriage and as the carriage exited the village's gates. Sakura then approached her. Why do you worry so much? Sakura asked. He is the Hokage after all. You don't have to worry, she added. I know he is the Hokage but I have a bad feeling about this. She replied with a trembling voice. Hinata. A man then shouted. The stranger in trouble. Hinata. A man shouted. Hinata diverted her attention and saw Kiba running with a much larger Akamaru running with him. Kiba then stopped in front of her. Hinata. Did you hear? Kiba-san. What is it? Hinata asked. Your father cancelled the Hanabi's betrothal with Neji. Kiba exclaimed. And he is betrothing Neji with you. He added. What? Hinata exclaimed. But that can't be. Hinata looked down on the ground. Tears were flowing from her eyes. Sakura rubbed her back. Hinata-chan. Kiba stared at her with worried eyes. Hinata then stopped crying. I'm gonna talk with my father, Hinata said. Naruto sat inside his carriage thinking about Hinata. He didn't even notice who his escorts were. Several hours have passed since he left Konoha and Hinata's side. Oi Naruto, his escort said. Naruto stopped daydreaming and looked at his raven-haired escort. Sasuke. He muttered. What are you doing here? He asked. Sasuke sighed because of Naruto's moment. I'm your escort, he replied. Oh. Naruto replied. The carriage then suddenly stopped. Sasuke got out of the carriage. What happened? He asked the other escort, Lee. One of the carriage's wheels got destroyed, Lee replied. Nani? Naruto exclaimed. Naruto. What is it? Lee asked. Naruto was looking down at the grasslands. Sasuke and Lee approached him. A woman, Lee said. A woman was lying in the ground. All they could see is her back. Lee leaned down and moved the woman to see what she looked like. They gasped as they saw the woman's features. She was beautiful. She had auburn hair and beautiful nose and full lips. The woman opened her eyes. Her beautiful brown eyes stared at the three. She then hurried to get up and she backed away from the three. Are you all right? Naruto asked the woman. The woman just stared at him with fear. Hey, are you all right? Sasuke repeated the very same question a minute after. The woman didn't respond again. She was wearing a Suna vest. Her vest was torn and a forehead protector fell from it. She then collapsed. Lee picked up the forehead protector and saw the hourglass carving in it. Maybe she's from Suna, Lee said. Sasuke picked her up and carried her. He then put her inside of the carriage. We're so far from Konoha right now. The best choice will be to just continue with our journey to Suna. If we come back and waste more time, what Tsunade-sama said might come true, Sasuke said. How's the wheel, Lee? He then looked down at the broken wheel. I guess it can be fixed, Lee answered. Hinata quickly made her way through the streets, sobbing and being followed by Kiba and Sakura, who were the only friends of her that knew of the disturbing news. When she caught a glimpse of the gate of her old home, she stopped and stared at the gate. A woman younger than her then exited the gate and stood there waiting for something. She started walking again, trembling a little. "Sister," the woman by the gate exclaimed. "Hanabi," Hinata said as her sister embraced her. "Sister," that was all Hanabi could say. She felt her sister's sadness. "Is father home?" Hinata asked with sad eyes and with trembling voice. Hanabi nodded and pulled her into the house. Before Hinata entered the gates, she asked Sakura and Kiba to stay outside. Hinata then entered the gate and then the house. Her sister led her into a room where a man was shouting. "Why?" the man shouted. Hanabi opened the old-style door, and a couple of hyugas were holding Neji. Her father was sitting in the tatami with eyes closed. "Calm down, Neji," Hinata's father said. He then, where Hinata was standing, he stood up and approached Hinata. He then placed his hands over Hinata's shoulder. "I'm glad you have come." Hinata frowned and furrowed his eyebrows. Hiyashi then removed his hands from Hinata's shoulder, sensing his daughter's anger. He backed away from Hinata and walked back and sat where he sat a while ago. Hanabi pushed her older sister into the room and gestured for her to sit. Hinata sat down far away from her father and Hanabi sat down beside her. The other hyugas let go of Neji, sensing that he had already calmed down. Neji then sat down across Hinata and Hanabi far away from Hiyashi too. He then combed back his black hair with his hands and adjusted his forehead protector a bit. He then looked at Hinata with worried eyes. Hinata and Neji then exchanged confused and worried looks. The two then turned their attention at Hiyashi. "Father, why have you done this?" Hinata asked with trembling voice. Her father looked at her with worried eyes, but his eyes quickly turned into his resolute eyes. "I know that I have betrothed Neji and Hanabi 2 years ago." He then inhaled a large amount air and exhaled it quietly. "But I have cancelled it now. And I remember that the marriage was supposed to be done this year. That was not cancelled. The only thing that has changed is the ones getting married," Hinata gasped after hearing her father's words. "But father, why have you cancelled their betrothal?" Hinata interrupted. "Your sister is still too young," Hiyashi replied. "Then why don't you just move the date of the marriage?" Hinata interrupted again. "That is not the only reason," he said. "I cannot allow the Hyuga blood to spread out of the clan. Understanding that you have made quite a relationship with the Rokudaime, I still cannot allow it," Hiyashi sighed. "But father, how did you find out?" Hanabi asked. "About Naruto-sama and my sister. They just started going out yesterday," Hanabi asked. "I have been watching Naruto-sama and your sister for a while now, Hanabi. And I have seen the possibility of the relationship they would acquire years ago," Hiyashi answered. Everybody then turned their attention to Hinata. Hinata was looking down on the tatami. Droplets of tears fell down and wet the tatami. Hinata lifted her hand and covered her eyes. She began to weep. Neji looked at Hiyashi with anger. So cruel, he would sacrifice his own daughter's happiness for the clan's safety, Neji thought. Hanabi comforted her sister by rubbing her back. Hinata then stopped crying and she wiped away her tears with her hands. She then looked at her father with determined eyes. "Father," she then smiled at Hiyashi. "I know that Naruto-kun will not allow this to happen. He loves me," she said with trembling voice because of her sobs. Hiyashi looked at her with worried eyes. He lowered his pride. "Fine then, if Naruto-sama truly loves you, I will not proceed with my plan. I will ask him when he gets back." Hiyashi then stood up and left the room. Hinata began to cry again. After many days of traveling, Naruto and his escorts finally arrived at their destination. Upon arriving at Suna, medic Nins took the girl away. Naruto and his escorts proceeded to the Hokage's office. When they opened the door, they saw a man sitting on the ground with 2 other men sitting beside him. The man gestured for the 3-leaf Nins to sit down in front of him. "Uzumaki Naruto, the Rokuda. Ime," the man in the middle wearing the Kazekage outfit and with a very familiar voice said. "A pleasure to see you, Gaara of the Sand, the Kazekage," Naruto grinned. "I'm glad you have recognized me." Gaara then removed his hat and face mask. His face was revealed. His hair was still red and still short, but he looked more matured. "I know what your business is, Naruto." Gaara then looked more seriously at Naruto. "And I assure you that we do not desire to destroy Konoha anymore, so we do not have any connection with this assassin," I am telling this as the cage of this village, Gaara N bowed down and the two men who were the council members bowed down too. Please raise your head, Kage, Naruto said. I trust your words. He then smiled at the three sand nins. Please share the information you have gathered. Kage-sama, Sasuke said. Very well then, Uchiha Sasuke, Gaara sighed. A few days ago, I sent a group of Chunins to patrol the area. They did not come back when the time that we gave them expired. And then something happened. Gaara sighed again. The assassin you that have abducted your Chunins returned. The dead bodies of our Junins, the three-leaf nins then gasped. And the most disturbing thing is when we removed the masks of the members of the Junins, their faces were twisted exhibiting excruciating pain. And this note came with the body. Gaara then gave Naruto a bloody piece of scroll. Naruto opened it and gasped after he read it. He said that he will stay in the very same spot where he was attacked by our Junins, waiting for you. He stays at a certain cave in the outskirts of this village. If ever we would send sand nins again, he would kill them again, and the worst part is, he would kill your Chunins, Gaara said. Naruto then laughed a bit. Sasuke and Lee looked at him with confusion. Why is he laughing at a time like this? They both thought. And he really demands that I'm the only one who will claim the Chunins. He is very persuasive indeed. Naruto then grinned as he passed the bloody scroll at his escorts. The other two leaf nins read it. But, Naruto, Lee muttered. I have already decided to abide his demands, Naruto said still with a grin in his face. Ah, I forgot one thing to say to you, Gaara said. What is it? Naruto asked. About that girl you brought. The assassin. What about that girl? Naruto asked. Where did you find her? Gaara asked. We found her on the way here, Naruto answered. Gaara then stared at both his council members and the council members nodded at him. He then stared at Naruto. I thank you for bringing her back here, one of the council members said. Why? Naruto asked. That woman's name is Toshimo Mizuki. She is a very valuable sand nin, Gaara answered. She knows a secret medicine knowledge that has been passed in one of the clans here in Suna possessed, and she is the only survivor of the clan. Her father died years ago because of an injury acquired from the war years ago. She grew up as an orphan and is the only one who carries the secret knowledge, and a year ago she was abducted by an unknown rogue, he added. Someone then knocked at the door. Come in, one of the council members said. A sand nin entered the room carrying two scrolls. He knelt in front of Gaara and bowed down. Kage-sama, a message from the fugitive and the medical reports for Toshimo Mizuki. The ninja then handed a blue and red scroll to Gaara. The blue scroll had medical reports written on the outside and the red one had nothing written on the outside. Gaara placed the blue one in his lap and he opened the red one. His eyes twitched while he read the red scroll. He then handed it Naruto. Naruto opened it and gasped when he saw its contents. Nded it down to his escorts when he finished reading it. Read it later, Naruto whispered at his escorts. Then we better go. Naruto quickly bowed down at Gaara and Gaara did the same. Please come back here after you retrieve your Chunins, Gaara said before the three-leaf nins left. The same assassin played with the handle of his kunai while he waited for his visitor. One of the Chunins lying on the ground groaned. The Chunin sat up and patted his cheek to wake himself up. He groaned again as he rubbed his back. He scanned his eyes around the cave and saw the assassin sitting on the same spot. The light from the focused on his face. He glared at the Chunin. The Chunin sensed danger and he reached out for his kunai but his kunai holster wasn't there. Hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. The assassin then disappeared. The Chunin scanned his eyes again around the area but couldn't see anything since there was only little light inside the cave. He started to breathe heavily as his heart raced. He then felt a sharp object pointing at his throat. Because in here, I'm the boss and when I say you stay put you have to stay put or else, the assassin whispered at the Chunin's ear. Or else what? The Chunin asked. Or else this kunai will kill you, the assassin said. Stay put. I suggest you wait for him, he added. Him? Who is him? The Chunin asked. Your precious Rokudime, Naruto-sama, the assassin answered. Get your hands of him. A man said. The assassin looked where the voice came from and saw three men, one carrying a torch and the other two standing. The three men approached the Chunin and the assassin. The raven-haired man carrying the torch lifted the torch up to widen the light's coverage. A man wearing a dark suit was holding a kunai near another man's throat. The other man was a leaf nin. He had spiky brown hair and he was wearing a forehead protector. His face was sweaty and it looked tense, his mouth wide open because of confusion, showing one of his teeth was missing. "Naruto ni-chan," the Chunin whispered. He started to move but the assassin drove the kunai a little into his throat, making him groan. Blood started to flow from his wound. The other two Chunins started to wake up and gasped at the scene. The assassin then removed the kunai from Konohamaru's throat, sensing that the other two is already awake. Sasuke pulled out his kunai. When the assassin lost his attention towards Konohamaru, he dropped the torch. The torch landed on a puddle of water, thus extinguishing the fire. Naruto and the others saw Sasuke lung his kunai at the enemy before the fire was extinguished. Then after the light disappeared, they had a hard time to see, so they only relied on their hearing and other senses. They heard the clashing of each other's kunai and a couple of swishing and swooshing. Then the cave became very silent. Lee then lighted another torch. When Lee finished lighting the torch, they suddenly gasped. Lee and Naruto's eyes widened because Sasuke was lying in the ground out cold, bloody and bruised. Naruto scanned his eyes around the cave and saw no sign of the Chunins. He stomped his foot in the ground and gritted his teeth. He clenched his fist and whispered, "Damn, he got away." He then approached Sasuke and Naruto lifted him in his shoulders. Kazekage-sama, the Hokage is back, a sand nin reported in front of Gaara. "I thought I told him he should come back here, unless," Gaara thought. "Where is he?" Gaara asked. "In the hospital," the sand nin replied. "Hospital? What happened?" Gaara asked. "One of his men is injured." Kazekage-sama, the sand nin said. "Who is injured?" Gaara asked. "Uchiha Sasuke," the sand nin answered. "Uchiha Sasuke? But how could that be?" Gaara asked inside his head. He then stood up and left his office and went to the Suna hospital. Naruto stood beside Sasuke's bed. He looked down and clenched his fists as he observed his bruised and wounded friend. "Naruto, you are truly stupid. I shouldn't have let them follow me inside the cave. Good thing Lee-san is not injured," he thought. Flashback. Sasuke and Lee were reading the red scroll. "Come alone if you want your Chunins to live, what a demand!" Exclamation mark quote. Lee muttered. "Then you better stay here," Naruto said at his two escorts. "No," Sasuke said. "Oh come one Sasuke." Naruto pouted. "You want them to die." Naruto added. "No, I don't want them to die, but our job is to escort you safely wherever you go," Sasuke explained. "I know that, but," Naruto pouted again. "It was Tsunade-sama's request. Even if you order us to go away, we won't," Sasuke said, and Lee nodded. "Tisk." Naruto pouted and furrowed his eyebrows. End of flashback. Lee entered the room with the doctor. He saw Naruto's saddened face and his clenched fist. "Naruto-sama. What would be better? Naruto-sama or Naruto-san or Naruto-kun or just Naruto?" Lee muttered. Naruto noticed the doctor and Lee enter the room. "Lee-san." He looked at Lee sadly. His eyes were showing how he blamed himself for letting Sasuke get hurt. He then looked at the doctor with the same sad eyes. "Naruto-sama, don't blame yourself," Lee said. Naruto nodded. "Doctor, how is Sasuke?" Naruto diverted his attention at the doctor. The doctor approached him carrying a piece of paper. He then looked at it. "Well, Hokage-sama, I'm glad to tell you at Uchiha Sasuke didn't get any bones seriously broken and he didn't get serious internal and external injuries. But still, he is wounded and bruised and he will not be able to be at full capacity for a month. It will take that long for him to at least regenerate and heal some of his wounds and bruises. And I guess he has no choice but to rest here," the doctor said to Naruto. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows. "Is that so? Thank you." Naruto then looked again at his friend. The doctor then left the room. After a while, Chunins of the sand entered the room. They bowed at Naruto. "Hokage-sama, we have recovered the 3 Konoha Chunins," a Chunin said. He looked at the Chunin with wide open eyes. "Are they dead?" Naruto asked. "No, Hokage-sama, they are still alive," the Chunin answered. "They are. Naruto asked inside his head. How are they? He then asked the Chunin. The doctors are still examining their health. The Chunin replied. And Hokage-sama, Tashimo Mizuki wants to talk to you, the Chunin captain said. Hinata stared at the main gate with worried eyes. It has been more than a month since Naruto left the village. She would wait there patiently every day waiting for his arrival if she had time to. She then turned her back at the gate, because it was already time to go back at the hospital and help the medic nins there. After she walked a couple of steps, she suddenly heard the gate open. She quickly turned around and saw that carriage enter the gate. She smiled and her heart raced because of her eagerness. The carriage stopped and she quickly rushed near it. Lee then jumped down from the driver's seat and waved hi at Hinata. Sakura then arrived at the main gate. She stood beside Hinata waiting for Sasuke. The carriage door then opened. Sasuke then stepped out from the carriage. Sakura gasped when she saw Sasuke. Sasuke's forehead, arms and legs were almost covered completely by bandages. Sakura ran near him and hugged him. And then Naruto stepped out from the carriage with no wound at all. Hinata ran to him and beeped him in the lips, but he didn't respond. He didn't beep her back. Hinata wondered after her attempt. She then saw a beautiful woman clinging in his arms. No, Naruto-kun. Hinata looked at Naruto's face. Hinata looked at his eyes and noticed that they were very different. Naruto's eyes didn't give Hinata the warm feeling of being loved. Hinata looked back at the woman clinging at Naruto's arms. The woman pulled Naruto's robe a bit. Who is she, Naruto-kun? The woman asked. Naruto-kun. Just a friend. Naruto replied and then smiled at the woman. Just a friend. Hinata looked down on the ground. She was clueless. What was happening? Did Naruto consider her a lover or a friend? Her vision suddenly got blurry. She felt her tears ran down through her cheeks. But Naruto-kun, why did she beep you? The woman asked. It's just a friendly beep, Mizuki-chan, Naruto answered. Mizuki-chan. She wept more and ran away with a broken heart. Naruto didn't stop her. Everybody saw the scene and wondered heavily why Naruto did such a thing. Naruto, how could you do that? Sakura approached Naruto and glared at him. Naruto just stared at her. I can't believe you. You can replace her with a woman much more beautiful than her. Sakura glared at him again. Gosh, I can't really believe you. Come on, Sasuke-kun, let's go after Hinata-chan. Sakura then pulled Sasuke and they followed Hinata's trail. Sakura and Sasuke followed Hinata. Hinata stopped under a tree-shade in the training area, her usual spot. She sat there, covering her face and crying so hard like someone just died. Sakura and Sasuke approached her. Sakura sat beside Hinata and she started to comfort her. Hinata-chan, Sakura muttered. Don't worry. Cry as hard as you like. I'll be crying like that too if Sasuke will do that to me. Sakura said at the crying Hinata. Jay just can't understand why he'll do that, Hinata said while she sobbed. Hey Sasuke-kun. Sakura then looked at Sasuke who was leaning his back in the tree. You were with him for the past days, do you know why he's doing this to her? Sakura asked Sasuke. I don't exactly know why, but, Sasuke said. But, Sakura said with an eager look in her face. But since he visited her for the first time he started visiting her every day. You know, he started getting fond of her. Sakura then sighed. I don't really know since I was bedridden for months, Sasuke added. Is that so? Hinata stopped covering her face and she looked up at Sasuke with very sad eyes. But Hinata, Lee-san might know, since he was not bedridden like me. Sasuke said to comfort Hinata a bit. Sakura stood up and raised her fist. Then Hinata-chan, let's go find Lee-san. Sakura pulled her up and dragged her away from the area. They searched the town for Lee and found him walking in the street. Lee-san, Sakura shouted on the street. Lee looked at his back and saw Sakura holding Hinata running towards him. Sakura-chan, what's up? Lee then smiled at the two girls but he frowned when he saw Hinata sad. Hey Lee-san, can I treat you? Sakura stared at Lee. Sure, but what do you want? Lee asked the pink-haired ninja. Sakura pulled his hand. I'll tell you later. Come on, let's go. Oh, is that it? Lee said after he finished his bowl of ramen. Sakura told him what she wanted to know. She told him what Sasuke told them and she asked him if he knew why Naruto was doing this. Yeah. Do you know Lee-san? Sakura asked him again. Lee stared at Hinata. He furrowed his thick eyebrows and he closed his round eyes. I don't really know too. Sakura-chan. Lee sighed. You know he just started doing that when he first visited Tatwoman. I don't really know what he's thinking. Maybe he's joking. Lee sighed again. This is not a good time for a joke. Sakura retorted. Calm down, Sakura-chan. Anyway, why isn't it a good time to joke right now? Sakura whispered something at Lee's ear which made him open his mouth and widen his eyes. You're kidding, Lee said after Sakura whispered something at his ear. No, I'm not, if Naruto agrees with Hiyashi-sama. Sakura said. Hinata will be very sad, she whispered at Lee's ear. Meanwhile, Hinata looked down at her ramen. She didn't eat it. She drifted away in her mind thinking about the blonde-haired man she loves. She then suddenly stood up. Hinata-chan. Sakura muttered. Where are you going? Sakura asked. I'm going to talk with Naruto-kun, to ask him if he's joking. Hinata then furrowed her eyebrows. Or not. Lee-san, do you know where Naruto-kun is? Hinata asked Lee. He's back in his office, Lee replied with a worried tone in his voice. Naruto sat in his chair at his office, dozing off once again. What was wrong with him? He felt something in his chest that is like going to explode. Why did he say those things in front of Hinata? He sighed again. He had to go say sorry. He was about to get up when Naruto-kun. Mizuki entered his office. That sent again. Mizuki-chan. What are you doing here? Naruto stood up. Mizuki approached him and beeped him on the lips for a while. You have a visitor. Mizuki approached the door and opened it. Hyuga Hiyashi entered the office. Hyuga-sama, what can I do for you? Naruto asked. I just wanted to ask you something, Hiyashi said. Naruto gestured for him to sit down. Hiyashi sat down in front of Naruto's desk and Naruto sat again. Then, what is it? Naruto asked. Do you love my daughter? Hiyashi asked him directly. That sent again. I don't. Naruto looked down on his desk. Is that your final answer? Hiyashi asked. That sent again. Yes. Naruto answered. Hinata almost collapsed and she heard the conversation from the other side of the room. Tears flowed down on her cheeks again. Do you love her? No. The assassin pays a visit too. Then it is decided. Hiyashi muttered to himself but Naruto still heard it. Why? Naruto asked with a clueless expression in his face. I have betrothed Hinata to Neji. It's that simple. Hiyashi then stood up. He turned his back and he started to approach the door. Naruto widened his eyes. He was confused. What he did just say? He didn't love Hinata. He was really confused. Wait. Naruto shouted at the retreating Hiyashi. Hiyashi turned around again and faced Naruto. What is it, Hokage-sama? Hiyashi asked. Naruto's eyes twitched a little because he smelled that scent again. Nothing, Hiyashi-sama, I just want you to tell your daughter my regards. Naruto then spun his chair around. He then stared at the window. Then, I will be going now. Hiyashi then left the room. Then, I'll be going too, Naruto-kun. Mizuki beeped Naruto in the cheek. And before I forget, Mizuki then placed a candle in his desk. Naruto turned his chair a little bit to see what it was. What's that? Naruto asked looking over his shoulder. It's an aroma candle. It'll help you relax. Mizuki then patted him a little bit in the shoulder. Thanks, Mizuki-chan. Naruto then stared back at the window. Bye, Naruto-kun. Mizuki walked through the town wearing her Suna vest and a black outfit. A man then with a face mask approached her. It was someone she knew. What are you doing here, Ichiro-san? Mizuki then looked up at the tall man. She saw his calm black hair and his beautiful brown eyes. She blushed a little bit. I wanted to talk to you, the man said with a blush of shade visible in his skin which was not covered by his face mask. They then went to the Hokage monument. They stood there, staring at the six faces. They were very silent. When are you gonna finish this? Ichiro broke the silence. Soon, Mr. Assassin, Mizuki said. Ichiro then looked down at Mizuki. He furrowed his eyebrows to show that he was worried. Old man is getting impatient. He then closed his eyes. And it will be harder if you let this last longer. Ichiro stared back again at the six faces. I admit that Naruto is kind, but keeping him drugged with a secret technique is very hard, you know, Mizuki said. Mind you, you've been getting pretty close to him even without that drug. If you fall for him, you know what happens next. He will kill you. Ichiro looked down again at her with his eyebrows furrowed again. I won't fall for him. Ichiro-kun, Mizuki said looking down on the ground. I know, Ichiro said. And if you fail, you'll die too, or if you get noticed that you are just a traitor, they'll kill you. Ichiro pulled down his face mask revealing his beautiful lips and his handsome chin and perfect cheeks. And your death will make me very sad, Ichiro frowned. Ichiro-kun, Mizuki then leaned to Ichiro's side. Ichiro sighed. He nudged Mizuki to stop leaning at his side. Father, will catch us. Ichiro then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hinata ran back to her apartment. She went straight to her couch and she lied herself there, crying. Sakura was there too, packing up. Sakura noticed her presence and she went to the living room. She saw Hinata crying in the couch. I guess it didn't go well, Sakura said. He said he didn't love me, Hinata said while she sobbed. Naruto couldn't say a thing like that. Sakura tried to cheer her up. But he did say it. Hinata retorted. I'm sorry, Hinata-chan, Sakura said. She then went back to her room. Keisuke-sama, I have urgent news. A Junin-level Sand-nin entered Gaara's office. What is it? Gaara asked. Tashimo Mizuki is a traitor. The Sand-nin then gave a piece of paper to Gaara. Gaara read it and then his eyes widened. Chikusho, we have to tell the Hokage. Gaara said. Send my brother to tell him. Gaara ordered. How long will the journey last? Gaara asked. About a week or two. Keisuke-sama, the Sand-nin answered. Gaara gave the paper back to the Junin. Tell my brother the details and send him out ASAP, Gaara said. Someone ferociously knocked at Hinata's apartment door. Hinata, are you there? I have something to tell you. The man that was knocking shouted. Sakura opened the door. Hiba-san, Sakura said. Is Hinata home? Hiba asked. Yeah, she's home. Why? Sakura said. Hiyashi-sama has announced when the marriage would be held. Hiba exclaimed while Akamaru barked. When? Sakura asked. Next week, Hiba said. Then let it be, a sad female voice said. Hiba and Sakura searched the room to see who it was. It was Hinata. Let him have his way, I don't care, Hinata added. Hinata-chan. Sakura and Hiba muttered. A week has passed now since the incident happened. Since Naruto brought home a stranger and admitted that he didn't love Hinata. Hinata and Neji's marriage was tomorrow. Hi. Hinata silently stared at the ceiling of her room. She didn't care what would happen, life didn't matter anymore again. Her wedding would be done tomorrow. She was alone at her big apartment. Sakura as temporarily living with Sasuke to take care of him. Mizuki paced around the Naruto's apartment waiting for Ichiro to arrive. Ichiro sent him a message. Nothing happened between her and Naruto during the week. She didn't want anything to happen. Ichiro then arrived in a puff of smoke. I have orders, Mizuki-chan, Ichiro said. Spit it out then, Mizuki said. You have to kill him tomorrow at the wedding, in front of everyone, Ichiro said. Naruto dozed off again. He stared at the untouched aroma candle that Mizuki left at his office. He was really confused. He felt sadness, plain sadness. He didn't know why. He then took out a mock from his drawer and then he lighted it. It was the same scent he mysteriously smelled every time when Mizuki is around. After a few seconds, he put it out. He stared at it again. He didn't feel stressed, he felt very sad. The day of the wedding is now. Hinata went straight to the Hyuga mansion to prepare for her so-called wedding. She didn't care after all. The wedding will be held there. Everyone would be there, her close friends and Naruto. Naruto, her special someone. She wished that he will be the one that would be by her side during her marriage. But that was a dream again, because today he would only watch. Naruto arrived at the mansion, everyone glared at him. He didn't notice since he still felt sadness, but today he felt more sadness. Mizuki nudged his side. Naruto-kun, the wedding is going to start, Come on, Mizuki then pulled him. They all then went to a big room. After a while, Neji entered the room wearing a plain white kimono. Before he continued down his spot for the wedding he glared for a minute at Naruto. Then Tsunade arrived, she was the one who was going to officiate the wedding. Then there she was, Hinata. Her name echoed through Naruto's mind. His heart throbbed hard and fast while she passed by. She was wearing a beautiful white kimono that perfectly fits her. So beautiful. Hinata glanced at Naruto when she passed by. Hiashi pulled Hinata and then accompanied her to her soon-to-be her so-called husband, Neji. Tsunade then started the ceremony. While the ceremony took place, something very strange was happening. Naruto was crying. Naruto-kun, why are you crying? Mizuki nudged Naruto. Naruto wiped the tears from his eyes. I don't know. Excuse me. Naruto then walked out of the room. Everybody's eyes followed him. And I mean everybody. The wedding ceremony stopped for a while. Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered. Tsunade-sama, please continue. To be continued and thank you for watching.